Welcome back to Right Now with Miss Steinbauer. In today's lesson, we'll be talking about participles and appositives. Before we get into our content for today, let's review some of the techniques that we've studied so far. We've talked about using a variety of sentence lengths in your writing. We've talked about a technique called show, don't tell. And we've also talked about two rhetorical devices that use repetition. Those are anaphora and polysyntheton. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about two different sentence structures, which are using participles as well as appositives that can help you add more details or more information to your sentences. Let's get started. The first structure is participles or participle phrases. A participle is a word that is formed from a verb, but it's used as an adjective in a sentence. So if you're looking for this in a sentence, it's going to be a word that looks like a verb, but it's actually being used as an adjective to describe a noun in more detail. A participle will generally have either an ing or an ed ending. And an ing verb is used to describe present tense, whereas using a verb that ends in ed is used to talk about something that happened in the past tense. So when you're trying to identify participles in a sentence, you can look for ing or ed endings placed at the beginning of a sentence or a clause. Likewise, they can also be full phrases that start with an ing or ed word at the beginning of a sentence or a clause. Let's take a look at an example to make this more clear. Here's a sentence. The diamond-scaled snakes attacked their prey. Now this is a fine sentence, but if we wanted to add a little bit more description and more detail, we could add a few participles. Hissing and slithering, the diamond-scaled snakes attacked their prey. Here you see the underlined words highlighted in red, hissing and slithering. These are examples of participles. The words end in ing, and they look like verbs, but they're actually being used as adjectives to describe the diamond-scaled snakes. By adding these participles to the sentence, it makes the sentence a bit more dynamic, a bit more engaging, and more descriptive. Let's do a little bit of practice. I want you to pause the screen and read through each of the sentences. As you read them, see if you can identify the participle or the participle phrase. All right, let's take a look at the answers. In the first sentence, it says, now he was on the bridge, hunched over the bicycle. This is a sentence from the book The Giver by Lowry. The word hunched is an example of a participle. It's a word that ends in ed. It looks like a verb, but it's being used to describe he. So hunched over the bicycle would be the full participle phrase. And it's giving more description to the sentence. In the second sentence, the shirt was silk paisley, unbuttoned halfway down his hairless chest. Here the participle is the word unbuttoned, and the full phrase is unbuttoned halfway down his hairless chest. Again, this phrase, this participle phrase, is giving more detail about the shirt. And in the last sentence, narrowing his beady eyes, he read the title of one of the books. The first clause of the sentence, narrowing his beady eyes, is the participle phrase. The word narrowing is the participle. It ends in ing. Again, it looks kind of like it could be a verb, but it's being used as an adjective to describe he. Now it's your turn to try. I want you to try and write a sentence describing the picture that you see here. And as you write the sentence, see if you can use a participle or a participle phrase. Try it now. Nice work. Here's my example. Soaring through the air, the cat clawed at his mate. My participle phrase here is soaring through the air, with the participle soaring. And it really gives some description of that cat on the right that's about to claw his little cat friend there. The next structure I want to talk about today is called appositives. An appositive is a noun or a noun phrase that renames another noun right beside it. Appositives are also used to provide more details or information about the main noun. But the difference between an appositive and a participle is that appositives are also always nouns, rather than being used as adjectives. So that's something to keep in mind as you try to write them. Let's take a look at an example. Here's a simple sentence. The raccoon enjoys eating turtle eggs. Now this is a fine sentence, but there's not a whole lot of detail. If you wanted to provide a little bit more description about the raccoon, we could use an appositive. The raccoon, a scavenger, enjoys eating turtle eggs. Here the underlined portion, a scavenger, is an appositive. It's a noun being used to rename the noun right next to it, the raccoon. And it's being used to provide a little bit more information. When you use an appositive, you can use a noun phrase that's short, like this one, a scavenger, or you can elongate it. You can make it even longer and more detailed. Let's take a look at another example. The raccoon, a midnight scavenger who roams lake shorelines in a quest to fill its belly, enjoys eating turtle eggs. So you can see here, the part that's highlighted in red and underlined is also an example of an appositive, but I've just made the noun phrase much longer to provide even more detail, to make the sentence a little bit more descriptive and a little bit more interesting. Are you ready for some practice? I want you to pause the screen now and read through each of these 3 sentences and see if you can pick out the appositive in each sentence. Go ahead. All right, let's take a look at the answers. The first sentence says, Dave, my older brother and inventor of the super duper electromagnet, decided I should test his invention. The part in red is the appositive. It's giving more information and it's renaming the main noun of the sentence, which is Dave. And you can see here there's a lot more information being given. In the second sentence is a sentence from the novel The Great Gatsby. It says, Only Gatsby, the man who gives his name to this book, was exempt from my reaction. So again, the underlined portion of this sentence in red is the appositive. It's renaming the main noun of the sentence right next to it, which is Gatsby. And the last sentence. His target, a small doe with a pronounced limp in her left foot, was still with the herd. The portion underlined in red is the appositive, and it's being used to give more information about the main noun right next to it, which is his target. Another way to identify an appositive is you can see that they're always marked off by commas. So there's usually a comma right before and right after an appositive. All right, it's your turn. I'd like you to try and write a sentence describing the picture on the screen and see if you can use an appositive in your sentence. You can pause the slide now and give it a try. All right, here's my example that I came up with. The contraption, a mobile phone from the future, was installed inside every human's arm. So here my appositive is a mobile phone from the future. You can see that it's a noun phrase. and it's being used to rename or give more information about the main noun right next to it, which is the contraption. You can also see that it's set off by 2 commas, one right before it and one right after it. So as you're trying to use appositives in your sentence, you should make sure to follow those rules as well. Okay, that's our lesson for today. So this week, as you're writing your journal, I want you to try and see if you can write some sentences using either a participle or participle phrase, as well as an appositive. Happy writing!